Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. My name is Indrajit. I'm the co-founder for Pulsora. Really excited to be presenting the exciting developments of Pulsora to you. I think this specifically is around artificial intelligence and the opportunity that it provides. This is one of the most transformative and meaningful technologies that we've seen in a generation. And it applies to sustainability quite a bit, as we've seen from our customers and our employees have actually come up with so many use cases. Really excited to share this with you. First, just to introduce Pulsora, we are an AI first platform for enterprise sustainability and carbon management, full end-to-end regulatory reporting, data collection, carbon emissions, and reporting and performance management for the sustainability value chain. We have been recognized very eminently by analysts like Everest Group, Verdantix, and IDC very well. As you can see that we are in the leaders or the leader in this space, by far recognized by multiple analyst firms. This is by far a smattering of our customer base. And I think from this, you can see that it's a true platform that's not specific to any vertical. We have private equity firms like Apollo and BlackRock. We have manufacturing firms such as Shiseido, which is the fourth largest glass manufacturer in the world. Manufacturing firms such as Molson Coors, asset managers like Partners Group and Franklin Templeton, chip manufacturers like ASM, and of course, retailers and luxury retailers like Tiffany. The point being that this is a true platform that applies to multiple verticals, and it scales with, and it morphs and scales to your vertical needs rather than the opposite, which is makes the customer scale to you, to the platform. So first, I'd start with a simple assertion. How are customers using AI today? And there's a few answers to this that we've seen across our customer base. One, they're directly prompting large language model. I'm sure at this point in time, pretty much everybody's doing this. Just inserting this into ChatGPT or Anthropic, Claude, or Gemini, or your LLM of choice. The second one might be data extraction and collection. You might insert your sustainability report and maybe an Excel file and say, could you extract this data for me, perhaps even do some calculations for me? Once you start getting a little deeper, you might actually ask it to give you decarbonisation strategies or insights and recommendations. I mean, by far the most common answer is we're still exploring. I don't trust it for what the data trust the output of it, and we're still exploring the use of it within the sustainability domain. Very rarely do you find my AI agent to handle everything, although give it 5 years or maybe even sooner than that. I think this is where the future is. The AI agents are going to be handling a significant portion of operations. And the last one, of course, is sometimes we do still hear what exactly is an AI agent, although very few times recently. This is the reality on the ground from customers that are actually dealing with sustainability day in and day out. I'm sure you are in the same bucket, one of these buckets, and depending upon your journey towards artificial intelligence. So then the question becomes, are general purpose large language models like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or Llama or Gemini, or pick your favorite one, are they enough for sustainability? And our assertion come from real life experience is that sustainability AI needs two things that are missing from just directly using a large language model. One is the full enterprise context, and we can define exactly what that is. And the second is trust and governance. Overwhelmingly, the number one question that we get from our customers is, can I trust what's coming out of AI? I don't think they express the enterprise context question directly in a technical fashion, but they know that trust and governance is actually related to the richness of the context that is provided to the large language model. So let's talk about trust and governance. What does trust mean? Can I rely on the data? And can I also make sure that the results are not biased? And there's fairness and there's no manipulation of the data. Essentially, no hallucination. We'll cover that. And from a governance perspective, is it accountable? Is there jurisdictional fragmentation? Is there concentration of power? Is there access and equity and standards and auditing? That's what is being reflected in what trust and governance actually means. Now, from enterprise context perspective, this is what you give the large language model. This means metrics, the data, the periods, the workflows, the temporal data, the audit trails, who approved what, for example, the transformations, calendarization, mission factors, everything is fair game. But it should be structured and governed, and the relationships amongst the data are extremely important. This is where just working directly with the large language model often falls because the relationship between the data are inferred, and that's where most of the problems lie. Providing a full enterprise context that is structured and governed from a sustainability application like Pulsora can provide a tremendous advantage here. Second thing is organization hierarchies matter. And depending upon who you are and what vertical you're in, from an investor point of view, it might be a fund or private equity fund or a public investment fund that invests in companies. Companies have divisions. Divisions have locations. Locations might even have meters. Aggregation and transformation and organization boundaries are tremendously important in sustainability, not very apparent if simply using a large language model underneath the covers without any structured enterprise context. This is where an application like Pulsora can add a lot of value. And of course, the emission factor datasets must be up to date. This is where the data itself matters and the right emission datasets to be picked up for a specific location or specific situation or goods or service is extremely important. Audit trails and transparency. How the data got to where it is are extremely important to feed into the context. And of course, data must be complete, current, and correct. The point being, though, without an enterprise context, what you're getting is a bad response out of bad data. This is why enterprise context is an extremely important component of artificial intelligence for sustainability. So what exactly is the context graph? What you see on the right-hand side is a picture that describes Pulsora AI. This is the architecture of it from a functional perspective. The middle circle is the large language model. Frankly, I think one of the key differentiators for us is that we don't mandate the usage of a model. You can select your own model. we pick different models for different use cases as well. There are some large language models that might be really good for image processing, analytics. Others might be really good for reasoning. Others might be good, much better to train specifically for decarbonisation recommendations. That's what Pulsora AI in the middle for the large language model stands for. Around this is the context graph. This is the most differentiating aspect, the most important aspect of it. Could be disclosure metrics, regulatory metrics, estimations, transformations, organization hierarchy, audit history, calendarization, transformations, greenhouse gas emission transactions, everything that is needed for the large language model to be able to create the applications and agents that you see on the outer circle. And these are a smattering of them. We will actually show you a few of these today. Like, for example, might be a data ingestion agent, or physical risk agent, or benchmarking agent that ingests publicly available data to benchmark your performance against your competition. Supply chain data aggregation, public data extraction, or maybe even something more, mundane but very valuable, like a pre-audit agent. We have customers spending a lot of dollars in auditing, but I think what the auditor does can be automated to a large extent by providing a pre-audit agent so you can fix most of the issues before the auditor shows up. Or something like a decarbonisation recommendation agent. And of course, the easiest use cases are the insights and analysis, the reporting agents, which have been around for a while. We've had them for a while, but I think what you see here is the expansion of the AI model to extend to what has traditionally been advisory and consulting tasks. That's what's different here. Pulsora AI is not necessarily aiming to replace a sustainability consultant. It's meant to aid and assist to a large extent for what you would get from those services. So that's the context graph. So let's take a few examples here of sustainability AI. The first one is carbon management. Very high volume, messy, painful to get the data in and out, map emission factors, keep them up to date. So the enterprise context in this specific use case, you see a couple of screenshots on the left flashing in your screen. These should be explainable and auditable. Cascading workflows essentially is a feature in Pulsora where the workflow can cascade at any level of the organization. This is what frankly enables us to do data collection across an entire value chain that can start from an investor and go all the way down to a leader. You might not need an investor, you might be a manufacturing firm that might, one of our customers has 42 plants in 17 countries. The cascading workflow across all their facilities and divisions and different goods and services that they procure becomes extremely valuable, rather than only operating at the apex. And then data collection may be the customer's responsibility. An emission factor library, and of course, natively integrated with reporting. So the same data is being fed into the AI context is natively integrated with reporting as well. So you see the latest, timely, accurate data being fed into the AI context as well. That's the enterprise context for carbon. Examples of the agents that might be, high-value agents on top of this enterprise context. First one is very mundane, but extremely valuable. Bulk upload of invoices. If you've been in sustainability for a while, this is one of the most mundane tasks and very painful because optical character recognition has been very problematic and requires human intervention. So using artificial intelligence with a LLM doing this, upload thousands of invoices and we extract the data for you. We can tell you where the issues lie. We can give you the evidence ahead, attach evidence automatically and upload it. That's it. Very efficient. Adds tremendous time savings and very valuable. Simple. But goes from there to something more advisory related, like decarbonization agent. So a company wants a path to net zero. We can model the path using multiple scenarios. Each scenario is composed of projects that you might be doing. And of course, you might be already doing some projects, you enter them into the system. Or the AI can actually recommend projects based on your company profile that we know, including your size, your geographies, your vertical, what your competition is doing, taking that entire context into play. And from there, you can create these pathways and model essentially the output of it. This is the marginal abatement curve. But because it's part of the entire sustainability platform, it's tracked over time. As your metrics improve, the goals are met or not met. And based on that, we can display the progress to sustainability leaders for specific scenarios. Now, let's move on from carbon to sustainability reporting. Now, here, the enterprise context is a bit different. It's not just carbon, large volumes of carbon transactions. It's modeling of a value chain. And the value chain in a private equity firm is from the investor in a specific fund to the portfolio companies in the fund. The model of the value chain for a manufacturer is all the way from their divisions to their manufacturing facilities, to their shipping locations, and all the way down to the meters. The enterprise context for the value chain for a retailer might be specific locations. And we have customers like modeling complicated multi-stakeholder value chains. So for example, they might have a one user or manager in Japan that is managing stores that are in Japan, South Korea, and China. Therefore, they're responsible for collecting the metrics or the primary data for that specific part of the organization hierarchy. That also includes the workflow approvals, the revisions, the comments, the full audit trail, who changed what. And this, by the way, is not just human changes. Also means system changes. When you ingest data directly from a backend system, could be the environment data or the social data or the governance data coming in from ERP systems, supply chain systems, procurement systems, the full audit trail. That's the integrations into the entire enterprise ecosystem that provides the enterprise context. Now, this might be lower volume, but more complex than what you see in carbon. The point is that the context needs to morph to the specific AI use case. This is why working with a platform like Pulsora can actually add quite a bit of value here, because we know what the best context is to feed into artificial intelligence. So based on this context for sustainability reporting, these are some of the agents and applications that you would see that make sense. Data extraction. Instead of sending a workflow to a user saying, please fill in this data manually, you can simply say, upload your files. Could be Excel files, PDF files, could be a sustainability report, could be internal documents, Word documents, surveys, results. Just upload into the application. We would extract the relevant data and build what we call in Pulsora sustainability catalog from it. We would do historical analysis of the data, load the historical data from these files as well. Then could be a competitive monitor agent for mergers and acquisitions. What is the competition doing and what's the risk profile of a potential acquisition, for example? For a briefing reports agent that could produce reporting out of it, like private equity firms use it for reporting to their LPs. You might just have an agent that takes a single source of truth and then reports it up to a mandatory regulatory agency or to a voluntary agency as well. A DNA agent. You have DNA agent that allows for creation of a recommendation of IROs, tracking them with the guidance from ESRS, for example. And of course, these days, sometimes double materiality is not valuable. You can just use a single materiality in this case, which might be just financial materiality. But it's more than that. Water and biodiversity risk agent based on, for example, WRI and other data sets. ESG data ingestion. You have backend data, simply upload into an agent. We can ingest the data into the application for you. Of course, the physical risk agent, the supply chain agent to go into your supply chain, requested from suppliers to get primary data, requested from third-party sources. These become very, very rich, extremely fast with artificial intelligence. And in the past, most of these agents and applications, a separate application that you would buy, and then integrate them together. The point here is an AI-first platform allows you to do this in a very, very cost-efficient way with in an integrated fashion, so you don't have to create the context, we do. Let's take some examples. Here's a data extraction agent. Data is buried in PDFs and separate spreadsheets, becomes essentially usable sustainability data by simply uploading the file. We would analyze the context. We know what the metrics are in Pulsora. We would sometimes even more detailed than that, like child metrics, dependencies, creation of tables, stuff that is very, very involved to do, sometimes takes months for customers to do, can be done very, very quickly with an agent like this. That is the benchmarking application. And some of our customers pay a large amount of money. Even then, it's not a continuous monitor. The intention here is that we can monitor the competition, and you can upload your own context here. In fact, we can create one for you, where we can start to benchmark specific metrics against your competitors. And the interesting thing here is with artificial intelligence, it's become much easier to infer the quality of the non-quantitative metrics, the qualitative metrics, paragraphs, disclosures, and policies very easily as well, with the ability to see a provenance of exactly where we got the data from and how do we infer specific scores, for example. Very transparent, very auditable, and adjustable. What that is done here is a sliding scale that allows you to normalize units and normalize intensities, specific metrics across a competitive set of companies based on number of employees or revenue or other normalization or other intensity-based denominators very, very easily. Very valuable application that can be done in a continuous fashion. The simplest use case, but also very valuable, conversational AI. We believe at Pulsora that dashboards or dashboarding, static dashboards, are already gone. You can ask it a question, it would respond in real time with the latest data. You can actually, it even suggest follow-on questions, completely auditable, where did you get it from, where the sources are present. And it can draw the graphs for you. It can produce outputs for you in PDF and PowerPoint and Excel. Reporting is the easiest use case. We've had it for a long time now. But it's a very valuable use case. It's grounded in your data and traceable to your sources. That's the differentiation. Operates in real time to the context that exists in the application already. And governance. This is where we have a very esteemed advisory board at Pulsara, and we keep asking them questions on this. And the trust in the data is a number one issue. So there are a variety of gradations on how companies are dealing with trust and governance. And I'll paint all of this. The gradations are still figuring out the basics, or hitting risk or compliance roadblocks, right? Or pushing for more transparency and control. Very rarely do we find that we ever figured out and ready to scale sustainability AI. We used to about 6 months ago, we would see hitting risk or compliance roadblocks quite a bit. Don't feed any data into a large language model. That largely has pretty much gone away. I think everybody's starting to use this technology. It's really about transparency and control at this point in time. This is where most of the investment that we're making is going into. Second, and check if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'll show you a very, very quick couple of demos of what these agents look like. Any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to log into our corporate demo environment. This is our demo system. Just to lay of the land of the application. This is the dashboard. You have your tasks, your disclosures. I'm not going to go into the too much detail of the application itself. The manifestation of these agents and applications is in an app store. App store is essentially where you start launching these agents and applications that are high value. And let's take a couple of examples. Sustainability intelligence. This application is designed to monitor regulations, standards, and competitors for you around the world. The first thing that happens is, in this case, what I've done is modeled one of our customers, Aramco. And based on just the website entered, we create the context. And the context is based on, in this case, you see it, is 6 pages and 14 documents extracted from their entire website that mention anything about sustainability. Could be annual reports, could be 10Ks, could be sustainability reports. This can be enhanced with your own context as well, but the point is that we can extract it automatically. Based on this, now the regulation page allows you to go pick any regulations anywhere in the world. If you go, for example, in Asia and you say, let's say I'm in Azerbaijan, these are the specific regulations that be in Azerbaijan. Or in India, these are the specific regulations that are available in India. We make recommendations on this as well, but once you pick and choose, now you have a view regulation page. And I'll go into, for example, the California SB 261. Now, a refresh of this icon uses artificial intelligence and builds a latest news feed, which is very valuable in terms of what is happening with 261. We go after the exact source of the regulation. And the most interesting part of this is actually an impact analysis. An impact analysis, what it's trying to do is to take the existing context of the application, which we've extracted from their publicly available reports, compare them to what the specific regulation requires, and then create a very detailed insight. What the disclosure topics are, what the current reporting is, what the requirements under SB 261, and the identified gaps and notes, and then specific set of recommendations. Even provides a very detailed impact analysis summary with, by the way, if you notice everything here, it shows you full ability to go after the sources where it got this data from. So there's no risk of hallucination. A detail of each one of them is also gets to an interesting point that was made from one of our customers. I don't want to simply look at a regulation from just the regulations point of view to me. I also want to know what my competitors are doing with respect to that regulation. So in this case, the same analysis is provided for the frame for Aramco versus their competition, ExxonMobil, BP, and Shell, and then specifically what SB 261 requires. Gives you a very easy way to look at exactly what competition is doing and what the regulation requires and what are recommendations from us. Here are the latest updates. So that's give you a regulatory framework update. Now, by the way, this creates a digest on a periodic basis, every week, every month, and then emails it to the relevant stakeholders as well in PowerPoint, PDF, HTML format. The next one is that of standards. This is where you might have the same idea, but let's say for ISSB, and an alignment analysis, which uses artificial intelligence to compare an alignment of the current sustainability posture of the company that's in this versus the specific requirements for that standard. Therefore, it might actually give you a very, very easy view of what is required to conform with that alignment, with that specific SSB in this case. Taking a little bit of time, but you can see that output of this is very, very simple. It says what ISB requires and the status is partially met, what the Aramco already meets ISSB, and what the gaps to address are. So, interesting when you start thinking about competition. In this case, let's see British Petroleum in this case. And the competitive details tells you specifically what the criterion measuring Aramco versus BP. But another feature that was asked for is analyze the competitors' progress over time. This is where you start to see the progress of how they've come on their sustainability journey from 2024, 2025, and 2026, last 3 years. And it tells you, well, it was improved, and it gives you a bit of an analysis of exactly what's happened in there as well. So a very valuable application from a sustainability regulation and standards monitoring space. Example. And this is to do with benchmarking. Of the key metrics extracted from the source company, the company that's using it, versus all of what they identify as their peer group. And you can do major metrics versus all metrics. You can actually normalize this across specifics, dimensions like the denominator could be number of employees, could be amount of revenue to give you a nice framework. And AI analysis is interesting, which tells you some performance overview of how how the learnings from artificial intelligence, in this case, it exhibits significant variability when benchmarked against its peers with scope 2 emissions. And then also, it tries to get after Aramco's strong is in circular economy, leverage waste management effectively, water usage, for example, against PetroChina. Very detailed and useful analysis of sustainability practitioners. That we don't stop. This is quantitative comparison. But we get to narrative comparison as well. So we start to use the paragraphs and the policy that exist within these applications or within the documents and the context, and give you a score associated with that. And of course, the AI analysis is even more detailed. It tries to give you an AI analysis across what you can learn from how the competition is dealing with non-quantitative metrics. There's softer disclosures. Very, very easy for us to do, but actually very valuable for a client to see in a single place. Again, the context matters here because the entire thing is fed by the metrics and the disclosures that are present in Pulsora from the company's context already. So we know how to measure. We know the audit trail for that. That becomes the context. And then compare it against the competition becomes much, much simpler. Now, there's other areas in the application just to flash them. Like what is the alignment for ESRS or CSRD alignment based on the competition? Disclosure insights, and then transition monitoring. For example, customers might have net zero targets that are different than what this particular company has, and then to start to track them across that as well. We continue to make this richer and richer, but this is another application of the benchmarking agent. Now, I'll also show the analysis, a DMA application. I flash that pretty quickly. This is within a disclosures agent, and within CSRD, for example, you can click on double materiality, and this is a composite of 4 specific agents. You create your context. You then are recommended IROs. Each IRO can have a specific impact for applicable, what the assets are, and then what the transmission look through and details. And then it gets to the assessment part, where actually you can start to you assess the impact materiality and financial materiality for these. Eventually, you get to the materiality aspect of it, then eventually produce the materiality matrix. This is all done with the IROs actually being recommended from artificial intelligence and allowing you to create a very simple way to manage your DMA or is SMA if you wish to. There's no need to actually have to be a double materiality matrix. And this application actually morphs to your specific vertical as well. If it's a manufacturing company, it could be entirely different than its investment company versus a private equity firm as well. So a very quick summary and a very detailed, I should say, very short analysis, short display of the demos for some of these applications. Coming back to our presentation here, because we can go on and on. And if you're interested in more detail, please contact us. We'd be happy to do much more detailed demos of these specific to your specific scenarios. Then the question actually does come up all the time. What about accuracy and hallucinations? This is a common thing, right? I mean, of course, you're never going to architect a system that is 100% free of hallucinations. You can minimize them to a large extent. Large extent, I mean de minimis. And the 4 techniques that we use to do that. 1, system prompt engineering. This is where we spent a ton of time to make sure that this is in a box that it's operating in. Source citations every time. Record the data from what the calculations were. Graph it in the context graph, so there's no going into the LLM. We're telling the LLM how the data is related to each other, and we know it's accurate and timely. And of course, we incorporate confidence scores in everything. It becomes much more confident when there's a human reviewed. Now, we are never saying that there's not going to be human in the loop here. The intention here is to make the sustainability practitioners far more efficient at their jobs. Eventually, this does require legal oversight. This does require oversight from humans as well. There's always going to be some, but it's going to be far minimal. Now, how do you interact with this? What you saw here in the application is a smattering of applications and agents that make sense. But the key direction we're moving into is the context graph is so valuable that you, as a customer, will create your own agents, your own applications on top of it. You can choose your own. You can build it in Claude. You can build it in Cursor, Replit, any vibe coding tools, what have you. Extremely valuable and very ingrained into your normal day-to-day life. This is where the future is.